Hello everyone, and welcome to Soul GPS, where we learn to take our lives back in our hands after narcissistic abuse. And in this video today, I wanted to address a topic that's been coming up over and over and over again with respect to narcissistic abuse and touching upon the spiritual domain of things. And it's a concept that's been extremely popular, especially in the recent decade, and that is the concept of the law of attraction. And if you have been watching some of my videos recently, you probably know that I have some issues with the way that the law of attraction is presented, and specifically because, maybe skimming it on the surface and recording different platitudes and quick fixes, which I think it attempts to do in many ways, it might appeal to a worldwide population of people who are generally frustrated and maybe not super excited about their lives. But when it comes to recovery from narcissistic abuse and the process of awakening from it and then seeking to make changes, and especially healing and doing a lot of introspection, which inevitably healing from this form of abuse takes us back into our past, because we ask ourselves, what have we done? Why did it happen? How did we create it? Here's that keyword. I believe that, actually I not just believe, I know because I've experienced it, and I'll tell you a little bit about it, that power of attraction, the law of attraction, while it has really powerful components in it which do work, it is incomplete, and it can also be hijacked by the narcissist to further push their target, the codependent person, the empath, into an extreme downward spiral that will inevitably end up in self-blame, further victimization, self-loathing, which is something we have plenty of from our past. So rather than helping us overcome it, which it also can if it's applied properly, it pushes us further down. And I will illustrate how that happens. But first, what is the law of attraction? On the positive side, it is basically the idea of focusing and thinking about and feeling on positive things of life rather than dwelling on the negative. And yes, there's definitely some truth to it, because if we constantly mull over and think about all the bad things and what we focus on grows, then we're going to end up with a lot of that. It also talks about being grateful, which I definitely subscribe to. I think being grateful is a really wonderful state of mind to be in, to really look at your life and see all the positives, because it can kind of immediately make you feel a little bit better, shift you out. And I think that the journey of moving out of the depths of abuse and depression is a journey that's a tiny step at a time. And whatever we can do to, in the moment, make that little shift from, rather than being, down in the dumps, to feeling a little bit better and reclaiming some of the energy that's been lost and pulled into that feeding that self-loathing monster, that's a good thing. So I'm all for positive thinking. I'm all for gratitude. However, this kind of thinking, if it is applied in a wrong setting, and if it is put in the hands of the abuser, can yield really negative results and create more damage than good. Let me illustrate. I remember when The Secret came out, it was, we're 2017. Well, it was more than 10 years ago now. It was more than 10 years ago. It was more like 12 years ago or so. And it became really popular. And at the time, I was in a relationship with somebody who now I see clearly was a psychopath, highly controlling person. And we would spend time in this kind of a circle of friends that were really into this sort of stuff, and they were always like in a cutting edge of things that were coming out, like new concepts, new ideas, new movies. Like we would get to see screenings of things before they came out to the general public, and go to interviews, and it was I was living a really high life. I must admit, at the time, traveling a lot, seeing places, seeing things, seeing places, meeting great people. But I remember, you know, when we started to talk about this idea, and especially in our circle of friends, and they were talking about this, that it's just like, we don't need to any longer, you know, try too hard to create stuff. We can just kind of sit there and shift our thinking, and the stuff will kind of get attracted to us. That was how The Secret was initially marketed, because it became this powerful marketing engine, really, to, you know, and people were selling so many books, and there were all these authors and speakers that came out in movies, and it really tapped into the greed of humanity, and also the sense of self-loathing ultimately, and the dissatisfaction with life. So people wanted to suddenly find a way to get rich quickly, to, you know, like, they also tapped into, I think, laziness, because like now you don't have to work as hard. It's all in your mind. You can like shift your mind, and oh my God, you know, it's that easy. And also on an extreme end, it's I think really appealed to people who really have this desire to be gods, and that's the narcissist. You know, the narcissist thinks that it's higher than thou, it's better than everyone, and you know, they're dwelling in this really deep shame, and feel inadequate in so many ways, that now this new belief system, this ideology, was able to kind of get them from sub-zero ground level, or underground level rather, of, you know, how they felt about themselves deep in the depths of their soul, if there is any soul. Suddenly they're like to the top of the Eiffel Tower, because what they think is real. Like, thoughts are real, everything else is an illusion. And my partner really peddled that belief, and he got more deeper and deeper into that as our relationship progressed in the wrong direction, and The Secret became more popular. So that's what ended up happening, and there is a danger of this thing turning into something I've alluded to in my video on New Age brainwashing and the rise of global narcissism, which is called solipsism. And that in its extreme makes people feel like they're gods, like they're the only person that exists, and everything else and everyone else is a figment of their imagination. The danger of that sort of thinking is that it's extremely isolationist, and it actually ends up disconnecting us rather than reconnecting us, which is what initially was the idea behind the law of attraction. I think is that it was the promise that if you shift your vibration, if you start to think in a certain way, you're going to attract your tribe, you're going to attract the things that you're going to resonate with. Well, unfortunately, reality in the world is much more complicated than that, you know, because let me tell you, I tried for 9 years total to make this relationship work. Especially, I tried really hard in the last couple years of that relationship, where things were really breaking down. And one of the reasons why they were breaking down due to the abuse is because I felt like I was living in a 24/7 workshop of self-improvement. I was the one who was doing the self-improvement, not my partner. He was already perfect. He already got all the work done. You know, he's already done it. He's already done it all. Like, there was nothing else left to do. It was me. I needed to catch up. So every time I had an issue, which was kind of, you know, usually these were mundane things, like, you know, he would say he would do something and he didn't do it. Or he would flirt with the waitress, you know, or he would invite people over without me telling. I felt like whenever I tried to raise that issue and tell him that I had a problem with it, he would right away send me off to my room, say, you got to meditate some more and clear your mind, and you know, it's your thinking that's faulty. You're creating this situation. I'm not. I'm feeling great. I'm loving this. You're the one with the problem. You're the one with the problem. So I didn't really know how to fight that. Being an empathic person who wanted to always people please and accommodate, I would put the smile on my face. And even though I was really in a lot of pain inside and felt unacknowledged and unheard, I felt that, well, maybe he's right. And he was so eloquent in the way and persuasive in the way he communicated that, you know, oftentimes I just ended up letting him convince me. And two, I let him do that because it was easier that way. It was easier for me to work on myself than to have him change and him to work on himself, because that was impossible. Like, he would never do it. So the law of attraction. So it can be abused. It can definitely be abused. And also there's a negative side of it. And I think a lot of people have raised this issue, and it's a really important and powerful issue. Should be discussed more, because I feel like this whole belief system is leading humanity in the wrong direction. More and more people are talking about this. They think that they really can do and can create their reality, ignoring the collective aggregate reality that we all co-create, and which is extremely important. And it's a mess right now. I mean, if we really look around, things are not super peachy because of what's going on collectively. However, if we all begin to change ourselves, as Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world, if we all did that, then slowly, eventually, maybe we could turn the Titanic in a different direction. So there's this second negative side of it, and that is, if you're not happy, if you're not in a happy, positive, if you're not in a relationship, if you don't have the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence, as they say, and the job, the career, and the yoga body and all that, then there's got to be something wrong with you. Like, something's wrong with you. That's the idea that gets communicated. And I have a lot of problem with that, especially, that's maybe so much with me, because yeah, I do take responsibility for my life. It ain't perfect by any means. I have a lot of work to do. But now I finally know what to focus on, having discovered narcissistic abuse being at the core of my psychological problems. But what about the child that's born in Africa that is, you know, that the mother can feed? What about children in Syria who are dying from the bombs that are being dropped on them? What about the kid down the street who's born with leukemia? Did he or she create it? When? They're tiny. Of course, now then we're going to go into the more esoteric sphere of past lives, past karma and all that. And of course, I have a lot of issues with that. I can refer you to my previous video, which I'll link down below. But the bottom line is, we don't, how do we know? How do we know, you know, that we did something in our past life, now we're being punished for it? How do we know that we signed a contract with the narcissist? That's like, this is like, we don't really know that. What we know is what we know, is what we've experienced here in this body. This is a life, this is a package, birth to death, and we ought to focus on that. Of course, definitely do spiritual work, and if you have belief in afterlife or reincarnation or anything like that, that's your personal, intimate belief system, as it should be. And you're going to explain things to yourself however it is that makes you feel great. There absolutely is something to shifting our vibration. I look at it more as healing our wounds and releasing our luggage, our baggage from the past, by self-loving ourselves, by accepting ourselves the way we are, and by really digging for the truth. Like, what is the truth of what really happened to me? Am I the crazy one, or is the world a crazy place? It was my family nuts because there were so many disordered people, rather than thinking that you've created it. That's like such a simplistic approach, and it is rife with possibilities of self-blaming, of narcissism, victim shaming, re-triggering, deeper PTSD spiraling, flashback, re-emerging. You know, you get the idea. It's just such a simple, be-all, end-all, tiny, beautifully packaged with a ribbon on ideology. And it's not a philosophy. Law of attraction is nothing to do with philosophy. Philosophy is the opposite of it. Philosophy, philo, means love, and Sophie is wisdom, the love of wisdom. It's a lifelong journey towards gathering knowledge and finding out the truth. With the law of attraction, there's no digging, there's no introspection, there's just, you created it, or if you don't like something, just sit down, meditate, shift your belief systems, and boom, you're going to enter a new reality. It does not work this way. It really doesn't. You may have tried it, I know I have. It doesn't work this way. However, there are elements of it that do work. And those elements are what I've alluded to at the beginning, which is positive thinking, gratitude, focusing on what works. But then there's one more element that the first early parts of this peddling this ideology did not consider. They did not talk about this, and that is taking action. Because it's so unsexy. Because it requires work, it requires sweat, it requires making progress, it requires persistence, which really ultimately is kind of the gold key to creating anything you want in your life. You know, maybe not anything, because we're not gods. We can't just like flick our fingers and suddenly live in a palace. We can't do that, or float off in a cloud. We have limitations. And the limitations are part of our healthy shame, as John Bradshaw calls it. You know, having healthy shame means knowing your limits. Narcissists feel like they're gods. They feel limitless. They don't have healthy shame. And we are imbued with toxic shame, feeling often less than, feeling inferior. You know, like we don't deserve good things to happen to us, which is why we put up with the narcissist, and we think that that's the best thing that can happen to us, and we settle. Many of us settle for it without striving for more, or until the breaking point when we just say enough. But the path to recovery is all about knowing that you deserve more, you're worth more. So it's working on your self-worth, it's working on your self-esteem, on your self-love, self-compassion. But back to the subject. So looking at my little teeny notes here, little scribbles. So there is this error in the current way that the law of attraction is being presented in the most popular sense. I'm sure that there are people out there who talk about it differently, but I haven't really found them yet. But the error number one is that they talk about in the law of attraction is to ignore the negative. And it doesn't quite work with healing after narcissistic abuse. We cannot ignore the negative any longer. It's more like we're snapping out of the hypnosis, the trance, that things were good. You know, it was a lie that we bought, that this was fine, this was okay. It wasn't okay. And now inevitably it's going to take us back into our past and to examine our childhood, because that's where the root of it is. That's deep inside our soul. And until we shift that, which is where law of attraction makes sense, you shift that core wound, then things are going to start to feel and look different. We're going to start to see different things we haven't maybe seen before. So again, that's where it does apply. But you can't ignore the negative and only focus on the positive and be grateful all day long while damage is being done to you and you're being abused. You have to acknowledge it. And then when you do the healing work, you have to feel it to heal it. So again, you can't ignore the negative feelings because you're only going to suppress them. You have to feel them all so that they can come up and they can dissipate like steam, right? They're like they start as these hardcore, dense energy that we hold inside of our body that can later also manifest as disease. And as we feel it, it begins to unwind and take us back into the past. Memories will surface, feelings will come up. Maybe we'll cry, maybe we'll be angry. We just got to feel it and contain it so that it can come up and dissipate. And then we just breathe into it. We hold ourselves in it. You know, the key to self-love is to really be there for yourself when you're feeling less than. You know, because when you're on top of the world, when you've just accomplished something great and you feel like you look amazing and life is going great, then it's like self-love is kind of like there, easier to tap into. But when we have those bad days is really when we need to tap into that. So, and also, you know, the idea that But you don't have to really do that much in order to accomplish things. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to work on things. It's okay to put effort into stuff. You know, it doesn't, like focusing on a negative allows you to prepare better for your life, as opposed to live in this illusion that everything's going to work out. Which it's nice to, like they say, you know, hope for the best but prepare for the worst. I think that there's wisdom in that saying, because things tend to go airy sometimes, and we just can't stop that. But we can prepare. Now, if you're planning to go on a trip around the world, which I'm planning to go to Asia now, and it's scaring the crap out of me. But you gotta prepare. You gotta like book stuff, book flights, book this, like, rather than just like going and thinking things are gonna work out, when I might end up, you know, sleeping on a couch of some home which may end up being not the best place for me to be. So anyway, this is maybe not the best example, but you get the idea. With preparing for things, preparing for contingencies is a good thing. Like planning for the next place you're going to move into if you're leaving a narcissistic relationship, you know, thinking about what you're going to do about your children, thinking about how you're going to earn money. Like, this is important to do, rather than just sit there and try to shift the thinking and believe that that alone is going to get you where you want to get to. It won't. And another thing about this, the issue that I have with the law of attraction as it's currently being promoted, again, in majority of channels, not all, but in majority of channels, is the neglect on putting more impact on action, especially for people who are recovering from narcissistic abuse. And here's why. Our thinking has been hijacked all of our life. It's faulty. We hold a lot of faulty patterns, which we need to undo. To reprogram ourselves with thinking alone is not easy, because we have this strong magnetic pull to shift towards abusive thinking, because we've internalized so much of it, and we have this propensity to empathize with the abuser that may not even be with us right now, but it's like they're there because they're inside of us. We've internalized them. So the best way to really shift is to take action, is to do something different, to do something new. One of the reasons why I'm making this video today is because this was actually a pretty tough day for me today. I woke up feeling great, but then I don't know if it was the weather or what it was, but a lot of memories from my childhood were flooding in, and I was starting to feel really crappy, and I noticed myself spiraling down into this kind of self-loathing thinking, feeling less than, feeling like maybe it was my fault. And I was watching it, and I was kind of like, shouldn't buy into it, but still it was like the feelings were still inside me. I couldn't quite get rid of them. So then, testing the law of attraction, I thought, okay, well, let's think about the things I'm grateful for, and let's start to think positive. And the moment I started to think about the things I was grateful for, I immediately felt better. So I was like, okay, yeah, it works. It really does. I looked at, the fact that I'm making all these videos for you guys, that I'm able to travel, and that I'm able to write, which is something that I've always wanted to do, that I'm able to make a living doing that, which I will make a video specifically about that soon. But, about my friends, about the new things that I have experienced, and the progress I've been making on my healing, and even down to some of the few things that I possess, that I like, that are nice, and I instantly felt better. But then I took action. I started to make food. I started to rearrange my room so that it's neater, it's cleaner. I played with a cat. I went shopping. I watched a funny video with a friend. And I noticed, like, I came out of it. I came out of the scene. I'm like, I gotta shoot a video, because it really does work. But I feel like the shifting the thinking and moving towards gratitude is like the jumping off point. But then you have to actually do something. And when I just went in with my heart open, my mind open to actually doing things, even down to doing laundry. I remember I was hanging my clothes, and I was like, this is so cool, because I'm not thinking right now about ruminating about the stuff that was ailing me anymore. And actually, I didn't really want to think about it anymore, because I almost felt like it got resolved by itself just because I was focusing on doing something that was positive in my life. So I want to really encourage you doing that. And here's why. What we do and how we think creates patterns in our brain. It's due to neuroplasticity. We're able to change those patterns if we change the way we think and the things that we do. And it takes about 3 months to rewire your brain. When we rewire our brain by taking new action, it's going to change the way we see things, which affects our perception. So we're going to see things in a new light. And the more things we're going to do for ourselves that are nurturing us, that are self-loving, that are positive, the more positively we're going to be thinking of ourselves, which is really what we want in this recovery process. That's the golden key. So patterns are good. If we were to live a different life every single day, wake up in a different place, have to learn a new way of being, encounter new people, we would go mad. It would be too overwhelming. Our brain and our nervous system would have fried. We need those patterns. We need repetitions. Like the universe, it operates on fractals, which are self-repeating patterns. So if we do really work on that core pattern, which is really our brain, what's in our brain, and shift it, reframe it, heal it, then we can count on the idea more than as we go through our life, even in the most unpredictable and challenging moments, we're going to be able to cope with it in a good way because we have changed the patterns inside. I hope that makes sense, what I'm trying to say. So rather than being caught in a loop of, I am, a self-doubt, feeling like you're somehow not worthy, you're a bad person, you deserve what you've got, the future looks bleak, you feel alone, lonely, unworthy, and all that. Break out of that loop by doing something nice for yourself. Go take a walk, cook yourself a nice dinner, call up a friend, watch a funny video. I did really mundane things today, but they were so cool. They really worked. Like, ultimately, I think it's about the simplest things that make us most happy. I didn't work on any big projects. I didn't book any flights. I was just here with myself and with my friend, tidying the place up, doing the things that we've always been doing, carrying water, chopping wood. So I hope that this video helped you, and it helped also clarify the points that I had alluded to in my other videos where I have issues with the law of attraction. Again, I feel like it could be a tool of blame shifting and guilt tripping when the narcissist uses it. It's getting dark in here. Light is coming down. It's after sunset, and that's one thing. It leaves us vulnerable to it. But two is, if we don't apply it by taking action, then just changing our thoughts is not going to work. And also, let's never forget about the collective, the aggregate reality that we're living in, which is a combination of healthy people and disordered people. And this is why it looks the way it does. And the more we heal ourselves and don't feed the bad dog, I think the more we can change this world and make it a better place for our future generations and for tomorrow. Because if we do make a better choice today for ourselves, so we feel better about ourselves, then we'll leave a better legacy for the next day. And so slowly, tiny little step at a time, we're going to climb that hill, climb that mountain, until we can arrive feeling like we have created a pattern within ourselves that will not allow for any more abuse, that will not allow for self-loathing. Because if we continue abusing ourselves, then how are we ever going to manifest or create a better reality? So we need to work on that first. Stop abusing ourselves, shift out of that mindset, and take positive action. So, thank you so much for your attention here. Again, I really appreciate all of your support. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let me know what you think. I will see you in the comments below. Meanwhile, you can check out my website and my free program that I have for you. And remember to take care of yourself, think highly of yourself, do good things for yourself, and listen to your inner GPS. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in another video. Take care. Bye.